So do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Good morning to you. Obviously, Rick's not here this morning. He's somewhere on I believe, the northeastern coast, him and Beverly, and they are on vacation and enjoying their trip together today. And he, like he always does, he sent a text to let me know that he was praying for me as I open up the Word of God with you all this morning. So I so appreciate that. Hopefully you came with your boats so we can row out of here. If I preach too long, some of y'all already know, hey, Jacob's preaching, we're going to get out of here early. That's what y'all are thinking. No. But I've got a plan of getting out of here because we don't have a boat, but I know there are some waders up there by the baptistry. One of them in particular can probably fit my whole family. So I called that pair of waders if needed to get out of here this afternoon. Where's your treasure found? That's the question we're going to be focusing on today. Where is your treasure found? And those verses I shared as I came up are verses that you would think we would likely share and talk about and use as our point of emphasis for lessons such as treasure. If you will, turn your Bibles to Matthew chapter 6. We're going to be there most all of our time this morning, with one exception. I'm going to ask you to turn to Luke later, but we're going to spend most of our time here in Matthew chapter 6. So go ahead and turn there if you're with me. Not all these verses are going to be listed on you, but if you've got it open to Matthew 6, you'll be able to find it. And when talking about treasure, we're going to go all the way to the context of the verses I shared with you earlier, back to verse 1 of chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6, which says this: "Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." Be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men, to be seen by them. There's an obvious emphasis here on doing our things for earthly acclaim. And if you've got your outline with you, your sermon outline, there's going to be 3 points that are going to be made today, because that's how I've been told you're supposed to preach a sermon, is in 3 points. So we're going to do 3 points today. The first one is treasure in applause. Treasure in applause, in acclaim. Apparently, the why matters just as much, or certainly matters, just like the what matters. What you do and why you do it are both of great importance. You can do things that appear to be storing up for heaven when in fact they are for you storing up things on earth. What do I mean when I say that? Well, Jesus says it better than any of us could. He gives us several examples here in Matthew chapter 6, and I'll start with the first in verse 2. "So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets to be honored by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." He talks about prayer in the same manner, starting in verse 5. "And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by men. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Verses 16 through 18, if you'll follow me, he's going to talk about fasting now. "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show men that they are fasting. I tell you the truth, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head, wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to men that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. You see, it's obvious Jesus is making the point that motives matter. The why you do what you do matters. Now, all of us would agree that giving to the needy is a good thing, right? Just shake your head so I know that you're awake. Yeah, giving to the needy is a good thing. Praying, good thing? Good thing. Fasting, good thing? Yes, great thing. Jesus' point is about the why. It's about the motives. Why are you doing those things? Because he makes it very clear that our motives matter. Now, as we talk about this, Rick's sermon from a couple weeks ago comes to mind, a lot of what he shared when he was talking about Jesus as our judge. He talked about our salvation and separately our rewards. And here's what he said. While we are accepted into heaven on the basis of the completed work of Jesus Christ, Scripture says that we are going to be rewarded for our work too. Now, did y'all catch the reward language here in Matthew chapter 6? In all three instances we just shared, it says this, such as verse 4, it says this, then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And it's talking about giving to the needy there. And talking about prayer later on in verse 6, then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. And then later on in verse 18, talking about fasting. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Now, none of these things, fasting, praying, giving to the needy, none of those things are bad things. They are of great value. But you can do those things and still miss it. That's what Jesus is saying. You can do great things, righteous things, good things for people, and good things to God and still miss it. Now, can I be honest with you for just a few moments? I hope I can, because I'm about to be, all right? I like it when people think well of me. I like it when people think well of me. I'm kind of a people pleaser. And if you were to start heaping praise on me, there's a part of me that would wave you off. Like, oh, stop it. And there's another part of me that's waving it on, saying, okay, bring it, lay it on me. Yeah, keep it coming. Can y'all relate to that at all? An experiment was made popular by Stanford University back in the 60s and 70s. And it was a simple experiment with children on delayed gratification. Some of y'all have seen probably even recent videos that are similar to this. But basically, the premise is very simple. They would take a young child, probably one of my 4 or 5 year old, take a 4 or 5 year old, put them in a room, in front of them, a marshmallow. This is a huge marshmallow, by the way. Thank you, Heather, for buying that this morning. Okay. Put a marshmallow in front of them and give the instructions. Say, okay, here's what's going to go on, all right? You can have this marshmallow now, one marshmallow, or I'm going to leave this room and come back in just a few minutes. And if that marshmallow is still here, intact, not wet, then you get 2 marshmallows. Okay, now some of you that would still be a hard decision to make. But for a young child, that is a terrifying decision for some of them to make. And so, if they don't eat it, they get 2 later. Delayed gratification. What does that have to do with what Jesus is saying? Let's take this concept into our discussion of earthly reward versus heavenly reward. When you do good things, would you just assume having your earthly pat on the back, say, way to go, Jacob, that was good, way to go, good job? Or can you imagine the bagfuls of marshmallows waiting on you? Can you imagine an auditorium full of marshmallows to represent the heavenly reward that God has waiting to say, Jacob, it's about treasures in heaven, not about treasures on earth. So is your treasure found in applause? There's some value in it, but you're missing so much. You're missing so much if that's where your treasure is found. Next, we turn to verses 19 and 20 where we began. It says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moth and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. Now, the subject matter seems to change a little bit about treasures here. It seems to be talking about things now in verses 19 and 20. Moth, representative of things being destroyed by something, right? Rust, representative of Father Time setting in on our things. And thieves, when someone comes in and takes our things. So number 2 on your outline, if you've got it and you're keeping up. Number 2, treasure in things. We're talking about materials. We're talking about possessions. I got to tell you, I have always liked shoes. I've always been drawn to shoes, been somewhat fascinated by shoes, whatever the case may be. I grew up in the Air Jordan era, okay? So, when I was a kid, every year, Nike came out with a new Air Jordan shoe. And it was a big deal, at least for me and at least for a lot of people I knew. And in my school, it was a big deal. Every year they came out with a new Air Jordan shoe, and I never had one of them. I did have some Reebok pumps once. Some of you remember those and know that they're back on the shelves now. And I did have some of the shoes that my favorite sports figure, Bo Jackson, at that time, I had a pair of the shoes that Bo Jackson wore, the Nike Bo Jackson cross trainers. I know all of you know exactly what I'm talking about. I can see it in your eyes. And so I knew that my parents had bought me a pair of those shoes, but they were waiting to gift them to me later. But I knew where they were. Earmuffs, anyone younger than 10? Put them on. My parents had put that box of shoes up on the very top of their closet. And so when they were gone, I know you guys are going to think very poorly of me now. But oftentimes when they were gone, I would grab a step stool or a chair and I would reach up and behind the boots in the very back in the top of their bedroom closet, I would grab that box of Bo Jackson cross trainer shoes, Nike Airs, and I would open it. Y'all know the smell, don't you? Imitation leather and glue and rubber. It's a beautiful smell. And I would take that shoe and I would hold it. I would gaze upon it. At times I would take the stuffing out of the toes and try it on and hurriedly put it back because I was scared Mom and Dad were going to come back very quickly. I'd put it back in that box behind the boots in the very top of the closet and I'd leave them there. I know some of you are thinking, you're a sick guy, right? Well, you may not be able to relate to shoes. Well, you know what happens to shoes with little boys, right? When I finally was gifted with those shoes, they lasted for a little while because I tried to take as best care of them as I could. But rust set in. Playground, not rust, real rust, but the playground, the recess playground, and a boy's foot growing. Those shoes didn't last. Those shoes didn't last. And maybe you can't relate to shoes at all. But you might have your thing, all right? I don't know what your thing is. Is it clothes? Is it a vehicle or vehicles? Is it a home? Is it a boat? Is it a houseboat? Is it jewelry? Is it pets, land, livestock, electronics? I don't know. If I kept on and on, I'd finally get everybody, I think. But you probably have that one thing that you're kind of a sucker for. The book of Matthew, chapter 6 goes on. Jesus says in chapter 25, verse 25 and following, he goes on to talk about food and clothes and drink. Just more things to be destroyed by moth, rust, and thieves. And he makes the point. He says this. He says, hey, don't worry about these things. I'm going to give you what you need. Things have a way of distracting us and consuming us. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Let's continue in verse 24. No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You cannot serve both God and money. So the third to the question, where is your treasure found? Treasure in money. Treasure in money. There is a reason that Jesus made so many warnings against greed and materialism, because he knew that money and wealth is a primary competition for our hearts. Mark 8 says this, what good is it a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his very soul? You remember the rich young ruler in Matthew 19. He missed it. His treasure was found in things, in money, and wealth. The God of wealth was on the throne of his heart. So I ask you this question. How can you tell if the accumulation of materials, wealth, and money, how can you tell if they are winning in the battle for your heart? Once again, how can you tell if materials and wealth are winning in the battle for your heart? This is where I'm going to ask you to turn to Luke. You can hold a finger, if you will, in Matthew 6, but we're going to turn to Luke 12 for a few minutes. Because I believe it holds at least one answer, one clue to the question I just asked. Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man produced a good crop. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns, build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich toward God." This is how it will be for anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich toward God. So my question once again is this. How can you tell if the accumulation of things and money are winning in the battle for your heart? Jesus says, you're not rich toward God. I believe that's one of the ways you can tell, is that you are not rich toward God. So where's your treasure found? All of the above, treasure in applause, treasure in things, and treasure in money, are heart issues. Matthew 6:21 says this, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And in Scripture, the heart is the center of one's being, involving one's emotions, reason, and will. The nature of one's heart is reflected in the things that you value the most. It's not an applause issue. It's not a shoe issue. It's not a money issue. It's a matter of the heart. So there's a few questions for you to consider. These are on your outline, and you're going to be exploring these further in your life groups today, which is just a reminder, this is your last life group before the summer break of life groups. But these questions, just questions to consider. One is, what treasure do you seek? What treasure do you seek? Is it applause? Is it things? Is it money? Or is it heavenly treasure? Why do you seek that treasure? Really? Why? Like really dig deep. Why do I seek the treasure that I seek? What are my motives? Because remember, the why matters. Motives matter. Will that treasure last? And is God enough? Is God enough? Ron led the song before the sermon today, "As the Deer Thirsts," which comes straight from Psalm chapter 42. As the deer pants for streams of living water, or streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. Is God enough? Today, if you don't know, is a special day for our graduating seniors. We're going to honor them in a few minutes with a gift from the church, a Bible. We're also going to have a meal, a banquet for they and their family members. But I want to say just a brief something to you graduating seniors, and I want everyone else to hear these as well, because it applies to all of us. But I pray that each of you, seniors, I pray that each of you search your hearts and your motives and identify what treasure you seek. You are going to be tempted in so many ways over these next few years. And it's going to be coming at you hard from a lot of places. And Satan is going to be working on people, and people are going to be used in a way to try to convince you that treasure is found in things, in applause, in accolades, in awards, in money. Can I plead with you? Can I plead with all of you to find your treasures in heaven? And I'm working on this with you. To fully trust the one who created us. To trust him that what he has for us is much better than what we can gain here. I'd like to share one story. It's fairly lengthy, but I think it makes this point very well. The cheerful girl with bouncy golden curls was almost 5. Waiting with her mother at the checkout stand, she saw them. A circle of glistening white pearls in a pink foil box. "Oh, please, Mommy, can I have them? Please, Mommy, please." Quickly, the mother checked the back of the little foil box and then looked back into the pleading blue eyes of her little girl's upturned face. $1.95, that's almost $2. If you really want them, I'll think of some extra chores for you, and in no time you can save enough money to buy them for yourself. Your birthday's only a week away, and you might get another crisp dollar bill from Grandma. So as soon as Jenny got home, she emptied her penny bank. She counted out her pennies. After dinner, she did more than her share of chores. And she went to the neighbor and asked Mrs. McJames if she could pick dandelions for 10 cents. On her birthday, Grandma did give her another new dollar bill, and at last she had enough money to buy the necklace. Jenny loved her pearls. They made her feel dressed up and grown up. She wore them everywhere, Sunday school, kindergarten, even to bed. The only time she took them off was when she went swimming or had a bubble bath, because Mother said if they got wet, they might turn her neck green. Jenny had a loving daddy, and every night when she was ready for bed, he would stop whatever he was doing, come upstairs to read her a story. One night, when he finished the story, he asked Jenny, "Do you love me?" "Oh, yes, Daddy. You know that I love you." "Then give me your pearls." "Oh, Daddy, not my pearls. But you can have Princess, the white horse from my collection, the one with the pink tail. Remember, Daddy? The one you gave me, she's my favorite." "That's okay, honey. Daddy loves you. Good night." And he brushed her cheek with a kiss. About a week later, after story time, Jenny's daddy again asked, "Do you love me?" "Daddy, you know I love you." "Then give me your pearls." "Oh, Daddy, not my pearls. But you can have my baby doll, the brand new one I got for my birthday. She's so beautiful, and you can have the yellow blanket that matches her sleeper." "That's okay. Sleep well. God bless. God bless you, little one. Daddy loves you." And as always, he brushed her cheek with a gentle kiss. A few nights later, when her daddy came in, Jenny was sitting on her bed with her legs crossed Indian style. As he came close, he noticed her chin was trembling and one silent tear rolled down her cheek. "What is it, Jenny? What's the matter?" Jenny didn't say anything but lifted her little hand up to her daddy. And when she opened it, there was her little pearl necklace. With a little quiver, she finally said, "Here, Daddy, it's for you." With tears gathering in his own eyes, Jenny's kind daddy reached out with one hand to take the dime store necklace, and with the other hand, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a blue velvet case with a strand of genuine pearls and gave them to Jenny. He had had them all the time. He was just waiting for her to give up the dime store stuff so he could give her genuine treasure. Preacher story, right? I can't confirm that ever happened. But that story is real. That story is true. And that story is about me and you because we have a loving Father who has a great gift for us, a great reward waiting for us. And here we are holding on to dime store stuff that has little or no value. Where's your treasure found? Where's your treasure found? Is it in applause? Is it in things? Is it in money? God has so much waiting for us. He really does. This morning, I don't know where your heart is, where your needs are. But we're going to have a time where, as we do every week, and it's an invitation time where if you feel like you need to come forward this morning, then we're going to provide that opportunity for you. If there's something you'd like to share, if you'd like to put on Christ, the greatest treasure of all, you could do that this morning. I'd even give up my waiters for whoever's going to baptize you. Whatever your need is this morning, you have a chance to come forward right now as we stand and sing together.